Now, the flip side of this, GP, and I know you didn't get to see all of it because you're doing a million different things in studio, but there's a late game execution element to this with Cal and with Arkansas, and there's the side of this where Arkansas blows a 16-point lead.
So let me walk you through this, because it's John Calipari, and John Calipari always is going to create a conversation. There were some late in regulation, he's down 3. They don't foul. They end up in overtime. In the overtime, there's a questionable decision or lack of action in the final seconds. You just walk me through what you saw.
Yeah, so, I mean, basically, Texas Tech gets the go-ahead bucket with under 10 seconds left in OT, and Arkansas's got a timeout left. But it's one of those situations where oftentimes you'll see coaches let it play out because something might develop organically in the flow of the game. If you get the ball out of the basket, get the ball up court quickly, okay, maybe your guy gets downhill and can get to the basket, at the very least get fouled. But if it's not playing out right, then you use that timeout with 3 or 4 seconds left. You go and draw something up, get the ball in the hands of Nelly Davis, right, to take the potential game-winning shot if he gets it off from beyond the arc. In this case, John Calipari, you're looking at the clock. DJ Wagner's going nowhere. 5 seconds, 4 seconds, he's going nowhere. And then he never calls the timeout. And so what happens is DJ Wagner just takes a ridiculous contested 2 that never has a shot, and the buzzer goes off, and that's it. And so he goes to the death here with that timeout in his pocket, and he's going to get roasted for that. I'm sure he's getting roasted for that right now. I mean, like you, I've been doing 1,000 things, and so I don't know what the national narrative developing around this is in real time, but the one not fouling up 3 in regulation, and then the lack of a timeout there with the game on the line, rough. I mean, it's a rough look from what's been a redemptive second half of the season. It's a rough way for it to end for Cal.
That's right. I'm less bothered by him not fouling up 3, just because it would have required the foul to be with about 11 seconds left on the clock. And every coach I've ever talked to will tell you that's too early. At that point, you're just going to have to do it again. If you foul with 11 seconds on the clock, you're going to let them shoot free throws. They might, at that point, just decide to try to make 2, right? Tie it up and then foul you, and let's just turn this into a free throw shooting contest, and we're going back and forth. Or they wouldn't foul. It's just a situation. Well, let me start over on that. You're down 2. There's 11 seconds left. If they foul you, or you're down 3 rather, if they foul you in that moment, you might just make 2, and then foul as quickly as you can and just keep going back and forth. Most coaches would tell you it needs to be under 8, under 7, under 6 in that range for the foul up 3 to actually work as it's intended to work. So because of what happened to John in 2008 in the national title game, every time he's in a foul up 3 situation and they don't foul, people immediately, like I did a Twitter search for it just to see how often it was popping up, and it was there, buddy.
You got some Mario Chalmers footage?
Yeah, like I didn't see that, but I'm sure it's coming. And I think it's less obvious than the 2008 thing was obvious, because the 2008 thing, the seconds were ticking off the clock. You were under 6. You could have fouled up 3 there and done it, as they say, by the book. Fouling up 3 here so early would not have been by the book, according to what most coaches have told me their data shows. And so that's less of an issue, although it is something that happened. In overtime, I didn't see the last sequence live because we're like quite literally on TV. And then the game's over, and as soon as the game's over, we're off. New crew comes in, and I'm jumping in a car, coming back here, getting ready to podcast. I will say this is something Norlander and I talked about during the season. I want to say it was a Michigan game, very similar to the end of this Texas Tech Arkansas game. Dusty May was on the sideline. They were letting it play out, if I remember correctly.
He calls the timeout, and then Namari Burnett hits the shot. Was it? Do I got this right?
I think that might have been it. I just remember, if you can find it, go back and watch Dusty.
No, I remember y'all talking about it. I remember y'all talking about this. I mean, he quite literally, with his coaching, I think, won the game for him in that situation.
Yes. That was a moment where he was watching it unfold and then realizing it's a split-second decision, but you have to realize at some point, it's not unfolding into anything, call the timeout. You either have to recognize you're getting something and let it go, or recognize you're not and call the timeout. And I loved that moment in that Michigan game because it felt like Dusty was like, that's coaching. That's coaching. In real time, trying to let it do one thing and then audibling, call the timeout. Now let's do something else. If the argument is that John should have done that in this space, I'll listen to that one, because I am totally in agreement with, in theory, let's just let them play. Let's not call a timeout and let the defense get set up. Let's just let them play. But if you don't see something good coming and that clock is ticking down, then your best option in that moment is to get in there, stop the play, and see if you can draw something up on a dry erase board.
Let me give you the other side of it. I'm not trying to defend Cal, because I think it's pretty clear in retrospect he should have called timeout. But the other side of this is Rick Barnes trying so desperately to call timeout. Yes. So desperate. He's so mad he's not getting this timeout called. And then Jemai Meshack hits a 40-footer at the buzzer to beat Alabama for Tennessee. And how mad are Tennessee fans at Rick Barnes if, as that shot's in the air, the referee awards the timeout? And so, I mean, right, you never know how it's going to play out. But, I mean, it is painfully obvious in hindsight, this possession from DJ Wagner was going nowhere fast. You want the ball in Nelly Davis's hands. He had a huge game. And so he's going to get roasted for that. I don't know that it's going to be the lasting image from his first season, though, at Arkansas. The lasting image to me from John Calipari's first season will forever be him going into Rupp Arena on February 1st, beating Kentucky, turning around the season, getting to the Sweet 16.